Hi, now we are going to make problem number 9. Who has the most change? So the statement is, you have a matrix for which each row is a person and the columns represent the number of quarters, nickels, dimes, and pennies that a person has, in that order. What is the row index of the person with the most money? And note for those unfamiliar with American coins, a quarter is a quarter of a dollar, a dime is the 10th part of a dollar, a nickel is like the 20th part of a dollar, and a penny is the 100th part of a dollar. We are giving an example of an input of A that is a matrix, and that matrix needs to have 4 columns because we are going to have 4 types of coins here. And then the output is going to be B because B is the person with the most amount of change. First is going to have a quarter part of a dollar, like 25 cents, and the second is only going to have 5 cents. Okay, so let's see. Let's try to understand the problem. A matrix given to us is going to represent how much change a person is going to have. So we need to understand how much money that person really has. This only represents the number of coins, but they are not telling us how much money they have. So we need to get a value here, a value that is going to represent the change of person 1, person 2. If there are more rows, that represents that there is going to be more people here. And we are going to need to know how much money they are going to have. So we are going to have a value here, A, and then B, and if there are more rows, probably C, D, etc. And then what are asking us is to know who has the most money. So after this vector is created, we have to evaluate for all the values and give us an answer, the one that has the most money. The statement says that the first one is a quarter, and this is the value of a quarter. Then comes nickels. So those are nickels. So we have to be a bit aware of that. We have to be a bit careful because that means that this is the value for 0.05 cents. This is going to be the one for a quarter, so 0.25. And then comes dimes, and then pennies. So this is going to be 0.01, and this is going to be 0.1. Let's say here. Okay, so we are going to multiply the number of coins we have times its value for each one, and then we're going to sum all of them to get the value of how much change that person has. We're going to do that for all the rows, and then we're going to get the maximum value of this new vector. Okay, so we're going to try to make the code. So first of all, we have to uh, understand how big is our input matrix. So we are going to define S as the size of the matrix. And then we're going to say that size defines, is a function that defines a vector where the first value is A or whatever value it gets that represents the number of rows a matrix has. So if a matrix is like a 3 by 3, it's going to be 3. If a matrix like this is like 2 by 4, then A is going to be 2 and B is going to be 4. Since we don't know how big the matrix is going to be because that's an input, we need to define size. And the number of rows is going to be the first value of this vector. Why this is important? Because now we're going to create a vector full of zeros with the number of rows, because as we know, this vector needs to have the same number of rows that this one. That's why it needs to have this number of rows and also one column. So that's the way we are defining this. And now I guess we have to make an iterative process, but also we need to create a matrix that represents the value of each coin. So as we have stated before, the first row is going to be 0.25. Then the second one is going to be 0.05. Third one is going to be 0.1, and the last one is going to be 0.01. And then we're going to make an iterative process for I that starts from 1, and then it's going to go until the last row. So that should be S11. And then another iterative process for J. We're changing now the indices here because it's a different value. That is going to start from 1 to 4 because that's the number of columns. Also, we can just put S12, and it's the same because all these input matrices are going to have 4 columns. So we can make it whatever way we want. And then we're going to define C, that is going to be equal to 1 and I. So this vector is going to have only one column. We're going to change the value depending on the row we are working right now. That should be the same value plus what are we adding? How much money this person has. So that should be Aij multiplied by the value of each coin. So that should be B1J. That means that if we are on the first column, J is going to be 1, and this value here is going to be 0.25. If we are, for example, on the third column, J is going to be 3, and this value here is going to be 0.1. And this is going to work for all the rows here, from the first row until the last row. Right now we have this vector, and now we need to know what is the maximum value here. So we're going to define a max parameter that is going to be, we're going to start with this, C11, that should represent the maximum value. And then we're going to evaluate for all the values of C. So that should be something like for I equals 1 through the number of rows, that should be S11. And then an if the maximum value we are defining is less than the value we are evaluating, that should be like this. What are we going to make? The maximum value is going to become this value that we are evaluating. Why? Because this value is bigger, and we are trying to look for the biggest value here. So if the first value is not the greatest, it's not like the maximum, it's going to change for another one that has more money. And the answer is going to be the row. That means that for the maximum value, the person of the row number I is going to be the person with the most change. So that's the way we're making it. That should be the answer. We are trying to look for the people, or sorry, for the person that has the most amount of change, and it's going to be represented this way. I hope I haven't made any mistake here. I hope so, and that should be the answer actually. Let's try it. And that's not the answer. Well, it seems that I forgot to put a value here that is going to be B equals 1, because if the maximum value happens to be the first person, then we are never getting the value of b here. We are never defining it. So before we're starting this iterative process, we need to call b equals 1. So that's something that I was forgetting to do, and now the answer should be this. Okay, that's the answer.